the majority of narcissists, whether you look at the label or just toxicity in general. Majority of them are cowards because they run away from the truth. They run away from how they've actually shown up, the actual reality, because, well, it's too hard. It's too much weight. I can't deal with it. Can't deal with the shame. Gotta beat myself up. All of these different things. In reality, that's the big thing that's eating away at our society, and that's the big thing that's producing more narcissistic men, is simply cowards that are not willing to stand up and look themselves in the mirror and say, what is wrong with me? A lot of toxic people have a mask, have a version of reality, have something that is actually hiding who's underneath. What person is underneath the facade of how he's showing up. The niceness of how he's interacting with his friends and family, and then abusing you behind closed doors. There's a mask that a toxic person, that a narcissist comes up with. And that mask is built and put together like a paper mache mask made up of different parts and pieces from previous relationships, from other friendships, from different people that they've seen and understood that, hey, this piece, this attribute of this person might get me another day with this next person. Might give me a little bit longer. You see, you need to understand that the mask that a narcissist has is created specifically for you. He's got multiple of them. He's got shelves and closets full of different masks and different versions of how he actually shows up. Whether that's abusive, or whether that's arrogant, whether that's an asshole, whatever it might be. It's this piece of, what mask do I need to put on to convince you, to show you a different version of myself so that I show up in a different way. So I fit into society in a different way. These are the ideas. Are they always scripted out this way? No, this is me trying to break it down for you to understand. The reason why I break it down for you to understand in unique and different ways is simply because as being a narcissist, I understood and I saw these things happening, but I didn't have the right words for it. I didn't know how to put this into words. I didn't know how to communicate this. So now, learning and developing my skills of communication, it opens up the door to say, hey, I know the playbook. Like, I have the cheat codes inside your relationship. Oftentimes, sometimes speaking into your world, communicating about your relationship, and you kind of sit there watching this video and you're thinking, how does he know? Simply because I've lived it. So as I've lived it, and then as I've transformed, I've been able to actually break it down and share with people and show people, this is what's going on inside your relationship. This is what will happen if you don't change this. This is what will happen if you say this. And then them seeing it come true, all of a sudden started shifting the frame, having people understand, hey, he knows what he's talking about and he can help me find freedom. And so when we deal with this piece of the mask, you need to understand that the mask the narcissist creates is built up of a lot of different friends, family, people, things in their lives that they put together so that they look more normal. That's what it is. It's like, how do I look normal to society? How do I look like a faithful husband and still be a cheater? Mask of a faithful husband. How do I look like a great worker but still like skip behind different things? Still lie about certain things? Mask of being truthful but then liar behind. So there's all these different masks that happen. Now what's interesting is behind the mask there is a different layer and there's a different level of things that the toxic person is going through. This is not a piece of saying, oh, woe is the toxic person, or whoa, like how awful is this? And we're not going to play or put him into a place of victimhood. Frankly, if you're with a toxic guy and he's not willing to be honest, vulnerable, or show consistent transformation in his life, you need to leave. There's not a piece of me that's selling hope or this idea that he's magically going to change, especially when you've seen years and years of facts and demonstration and evidence that that's not the case. So if you're not seeing the growth that you actually need to see in your relationship and in his life, you probably need to start looking for the exit. That way you can leave and now you can actually find someone who's willing to invest time and energy into themselves and in result, you as well. But underneath the mask of a narcissist is this piece of guilt. Guilt, and when you hear it, you might think, Ben, that doesn't sound right. Like, that doesn't actually connect because he's never shown any remorse. It's different. You can have guilt and still not show this external remorse. Why? Because you have a mask, and the mask doesn't allow remorse to come to the surface. Just like the mask doesn't allow guilt to come to the surface. So when a narcissist has this level of guilt, it's this piece of frustration. It's this piece of attack. which is really interesting. Consider for a moment the frustration. The frustration is the narcissist getting called out for something. Like the toxic guy in your life, he's get called out for something he did. How he talked, how he communicated, how he cheated, like whatever it might be. There's this triggering point of like, hey, I'm going to call you out and hold you accountable because you agreed to show up in this relationship a certain way and you're failing at that. You're just not following through. And so when this piece happens of this accountability, the narcissist gets frustrated. Why? Because you're pissing him off because you're breaking down his own image of himself. The version of him that's perfect. The version of him that doesn't do things wrong. The version of him that's never wrong. And so when you're confronting this, you're actually putting it on attack. Now, what's interesting about this is the narcissist will twist every single thing inside his mind to be able to make sure that he's the good guy. Sometimes this might mean playing victim. If I can't believe you're attacking me, can't believe you're abusing me with your words, I can't believe you're being manipulative. All these things that get projected back onto you that he's actually doing, but he has to find a way to not be at fault, for it not to be his cause, his frustration, but instead it's your problem, it's your situation, it's your interaction that's breaking and hurting the whole entire relationship. So inside this, what you see is the narcissist develops this mask. This mask is made up of a lot of different people and circumstances to appear a certain way and to appear more normal to society. Then you have this piece where you hold him accountable. And what that is it's calling that mask into question. It's saying, wait a second, you've said that you're a good dad, but you're not demonstrating a good dad by how you're being abusive to the wife. You're not demonstrating that you're a good dad by demonstrating honesty. You're not demonstrating that you're a good dad by the cheating relationship you've had for 5 years. So let's talk about this. And what it's doing is it's chipping away at that mask. There's a mask there and it's like slowly just pulling pieces off. And the narcissist looks at that and they get frustrated because they're like, wait a second, you're holding me accountable. You're holding me responsible. Hate that. Don't want to feel that. Because there's a piece there that is activating layers of guilt. Guilt because what they're actually saying and putting out there actually isn't true. And this guilt shows up simply by saying, hey, I did something bad. Like I told a lie, I cheated, I did X, Y, and Z. There's all these different things. I did something bad. And that doesn't show up until you actually hold them accountable. And they're not going to feel this, they're not going to experience this, they're not even going to think about this unless there's a level of accountability and responsibility that you actually push into the relationship. Otherwise, everything else is going to get compartmentalized, pushed to the side, like moved away so that it doesn't actually impact or affect him in a negative way. And so guilt is a piece that's underneath the mask, but it's brief. Like it's very, very quick. Think of it like gone. Because over a period of time, a narcissist trains himself over and over to take guilt, to view it as this frontal attack on his mask that he loves and that's validating him and that's a part of him, and shoves it to the side so that guilt no longer has to speak to him saying that I did something bad. Because if he admits that he did something bad, then it would trigger a deeper wound, a deeper thing that frustrates and actually starts to disintegrate the mask completely. And that piece is shame. Shame of who he actually is. Shame of the incongruencies between the mask and how he's showing up. Shame between the question, is he a man or is he a monster? Shame between how is he actually showing up? Is it real? Is it false? What is actually true? Because while guilt tells you, hey, you just did something bad, shame spins it into your identity, saying, hey, you are bad. You are the worst person in the world. You are that monster. And that becomes polar opposite to the mask. Polar opposite in how he wants to think and feel and take that on. And as a result, he'll push against it. He'll rage. He'll get frustrated. He'll get ecstatic to the place of just blowing up on you. Simply because you're attacking his image. You're attacking who he is at the core. That version of him that is incongruent with what he's putting out there. The version of him that he doesn't want to show, that he doesn't want to demonstrate, that he doesn't want to be responsible to, because that version of him he doesn't know what to do with. That version of him he's not willing to confront. This is why the majority of narcissists, whether you look at the label or just toxicity in general, majority of them are cowards. Because they run away from the truth. They run away from how they've actually shown up, the actual reality, because, well, it's too hard. It's too much weight. I can't deal with it. Can't deal with the shame. Got to beat myself up. All of these different things. When in reality, that's the big thing that's eating away at our society, and that's the big thing that's producing more narcissistic men, is simply cowards that are not willing to stand up and look themselves in the mirror and say, what is wrong with me? And actually start working on it. Working on their honesty. Working on how he actually shows up. Working on his communication. Working on being present with you, with the kids. Working on not being a liar. Because all this boils down to the fact that he's been lying to you. He's had a mask. He's been lying to his friends and family with his mask. He's been lying to everybody else in his life with a different mask. But the biggest liar that he's actually been lying to and lying about is simply himself. His unwillingness to actually see that he's being lied to. The unwillingness to see that he's lying to himself on a day-to-day basis, saying that he's a great dad while he's an abusive father. Saying that he's a great inside of his marriage when he's not even showing up. Saying that he's providing when he's just providing the money, but no emotional safety, no emotional support. Saying that he's committed, but at the same time he's cheating. All of these things are masks. They're different versions of him to try to be able to put out there so he feels better about himself versus being a man and actually working on the stuff that's beating him down. That's breaking up the marriage. That's destroying you. The hard part inside of this is you can't force it, you can't guide him, you can't make him change. And even if you tried, it would be this temporary change that would make you feel good for a moment, that would lock you in for another year to 5 years, but that wouldn't have a long-lasting result because it's based on you, what you want, your results, you're pushing him, instead of it being based on his own transformation. Now, inside of this, I want you to understand that your transformation and your healing, your growth is absolutely possible. You're not stuck inside of a relationship with a guy that has a mask, with guilt and shame behind it, that is something that you can't be free from. Whether that's physically breaking up, getting a divorce, separating, or whether that's mentally. Being able to process and get rid of the rumination and the cycles that are happening inside your life and your mind on a day-to-day basis. If you watch this today and this connects with you and you're thinking, hey, I want to learn more about how to actually move forward in this healing process, then I want you to click the link below and go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough. Because if I can help you actually see and understand how to liberate your mindset, how to actually move you forward step by step by step, and the path that's already been laid out for you. It's not easy, but it is simple. And the steps that we need to take to build back your confidence, your clarity, and establish you in your certainty of who you're called to be. If I can help you with that today, click on the link below. Go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough today.